The large meeting room on the space station buzzed with angry voices. 12 different alien species sat around a massive circular table, all talking at once. Their translators worked overtime, turning clicks, growls, and musical tones into words everyone could understand. Captain Jake Morrison pressed his face against the thick glass window of the observation deck. He watched as his species' future was being decided below. The human was not allowed to speak. He could only watch and listen as the aliens argued about what to do with humanity. Ambassador Zefkari stood up from his seat. The tall, blue-skinned alien raised one of his forearms for silence. His voice boomed through the chamber when he spoke. "We have talked about this problem for 3 full cycles now," Zefkari said. "The humans spread too fast. They take over everything they touch. We must decide today what to do about them." Jake clenched his fists. "Problem. That's what they called his people. A problem to be solved." Dr. Crevier, an insect-like creature with 6 legs, clicked her way to the center of the room. Charts and numbers floated in the air around her. "Look at these facts," she said, her voice making a buzzing sound. 200 years ago, humans had never left their home planet. Now they live on 47 worlds. They trade with every major species. They build settlements faster than we can count them. "That is not the worst part," said Ambassador Veltar. The crystal being's body sparkled as he spoke. "Humans do not conquer like other species. They make friends. They learn our languages. They marry our people. They solve problems we cannot solve. In 1,000 years, they will control everything, and we will not even notice it happening." Jake wanted to shout through the glass. His people had helped these aliens more than hurt them. When the Zephyrian plague hit 3 systems, human doctors found the cure. When pirate attacked the outer colonies, human ships drove them away. When the trade war started between the Mantari and the Silicon people, human negotiators brought peace. But none of that mattered now. Council leader Mordak, a massive creature that looked like a walking boulder, stood up slowly. "The humans are dangerous because they adapt," he said in a voice like grinding stone. "Other species, we are good at one thing. Christine people mine well. Zephyrians grow food well. Mantari build machines well. But humans do everything. They change. They learn. They become whatever they need to become." "Exactly," agreed Dr. Crevier. "My studies show that humans have no limits. Put them on an ice world, they learn to survive cold. Put them on a desert planet, they find water. Put them in space, they build cities in the void. They are like a virus that spreads and changes to fit any environment." Jake's stomach twisted at the comparison. A virus. That's how they saw humanity. Admiral Thexera, a reptilian female with scales that changed colors when she was angry, hissed her agreement. "My military advisors say human tactics are impossible to predict. They do not follow standard battle patterns. They use weapons in ways we never thought of. They turn our own strategies against us. Fighting them will be like fighting smoke." "Then we do not fight them," said Zefkari. "We contain them." The room fell silent. Jake held his breath. "Containment," repeated Veltar slowly. "You mean the quantum barriers?" "Yes," Zefkari nodded. "We seal their home system. We cut off their trade routes. We stop their expansion. Without resources from the galaxy, their population will shrink. In a few generations, they will be small enough to manage." Jake felt cold. They were talking about starving humanity into extinction. Dr. Crevier pulled up more charts. "The barriers will work. Quantum walls cannot be broken from the inside. They will have their sun, their planets, their moons, but nothing more. No new worlds. No alien technology. No galactic trade. They will be forced to live on what they have." "What if they try to break out?" asked a small, furry creature from the back of the room. "They cannot," said Zefkari with confidence. "The barriers use energy from 3 different star systems. Even if humans somehow develop new technology, they could not generate enough power to break free." Council leader Mordak rumbled his approval. The vote then, all in favor of containing the human species to their home system. Jake watched in horror as every alien representative raised their hand, tentacle, or claw. The vote was unanimous. 12 species against one. It is decided, announced Zefkari. The quantum barriers will be activated within one standard day. All human ships outside the solar system have that long to return home, or be trapped forever in alien space. Jake ran from the observation deck. He had to warn his people. He had to tell them what was coming. In the meeting room below, the aliens began making plans for a galaxy without humans. They had no idea they were making the biggest mistake in galactic history. 5 years had passed since the quantum barriers trapped humanity in their home system. The galaxy celebrated at first. Trade routes that humans had controlled went back to the original alien owners. Mining rights on distant planets were split up among the 12 council species. The Andromedan Consortium reported their best profits in decades. Commander Alex Hughes stood on the observation deck of Outpost 7, the last human station before the barrier. He could see the shimmering wall of energy that cut his people off from the rest of the galaxy. It looked beautiful, like northern lights dancing in space. But Alex knew it was really a prison wall. Behind him, the outpost buzzed with activity. The barrier had changed everything for the humans trapped inside. Without access to alien materials and technology, they had to find new ways to survive. What the council did not expect was how quickly humans adapted to their new situation. Dr. Maria Santos ran past Alex, carrying a data pad. She led the most important research teams on the station. "Alex, you need to see this," she called out. "The breakthrough we have been working on. It is bigger than we thought." Alex followed her to the main laboratory. Inside, dozens of human scientists worked at tables covered with strange new materials. These were not the exotic alien substances they used to import from across the galaxy. These were things humans had created themselves, using only elements found in their own solar system. "Look at this," Maria said, holding up a small metal rod. "We call it compressed steel. It is stronger than Christine battle armor, but we made it using only iron and carbon from Earth's asteroids. The pressure techniques we developed can create materials the aliens never imagined." Alex picked up the rod. It felt impossibly light, but when he tried to bend it, the metal did not move at all. How is this possible? When you cannot get what you need from outside, you learn to make what you need from what you have, Maria explained. Captain Ben Lewis and his engineering teams have been working around the clock. They are creating things that should not exist according to alien science books. She led him to another table where Captain Lewis stood over a strange device. It looked like a small sun trapped in a metal cage. Energy danced inside it like liquid fire. "Fusion power," Lewis said without looking up. "We cannot get Veltari energy cores anymore, so we built our own. This one device produces more power than anything the aliens have ever made, and we built it using only materials from our own solar system." Alex stared at the device. The aliens had always said human technology was primitive. They had sold humans energy cores and power systems, making humanity dependent on alien science. Now, cut off from that technology, humans had built something better. "There is more," Maria said, excitement clear in her voice. She took Alex to the agricultural section of the station. Dr. Nina Powell was there, tending to plants that grew in ways Alex had never seen before. "Food production," Powell explained. "We cannot import food from alien worlds anymore. So we learned to grow more food in less space using less resources. These plants can grow on bare rock, if they have to. We can feed billions of people on planets that aliens said were too dead to support life." Alex walked through the growing chambers. The plants were strange colors and shapes, but they were clearly healthy and growing fast. "How much food can these produce?" "Enough to feed everyone in the solar system, even if our population doubles," Powell said proudly. "We are not just surviving in this prison. We are learning to thrive." But the most impressive sight was in the communication center. Despite the quantum barriers, some information still flowed in and out of the system. What Alex learned there made him realize something important was happening in the galaxy outside. Lieutenant Karen White showed him the reports. "The galaxy is having problems. Commander, big problems." The data painted a clear picture. Without human peacekeepers, old conflicts were starting up again. The outer rim was becoming dangerous as pirates grew bold. Trade disputes that humans used to solve were turning into real fights between alien species. The Zephyrian Trade Guild is reporting supply shortages. White continued. The shipping routes that human captains use to manage are breaking down. And look at this. Conflicts between species that have not fought in 100 years are starting again. Alex read through the reports. Captain Rick Johnson had been the galaxy's best negotiator. He could solve problems that made other species go to war. Dr. Amy Clark had created medical treatments that worked on multiple alien species. Her research had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Now those humans were trapped behind the barriers, and the galaxy was starting to feel their absence. Sir, White said quietly, I think the aliens made a mistake. They thought they were getting rid of a problem. But we were not the problem. We were the solution to their problems. Alex nodded slowly. The galaxy had cut out humanity like a bad infection, but they had not realized that humans were not the disease. Humans were the medicine that kept galactic civilization healthy. And now, without that medicine, the galaxy was starting to get very sick indeed. 10 years had passed since the quantum barriers went up. The galaxy looked nothing like it did before. Ambassador Zeph Carey walked quickly to the council station hallways, his forearms carrying data pads filled with emergency reports. The meeting he was heading to would decide the fate of galactic civilization. The council chamber was full of frightened alien representatives. Where once they had sat proudly around a circular table, now they huddled together like scared children. The reports coming in from across the galaxy painted a picture of complete disaster. Order, order. Zeph Carey called out, but his voice shook. We must discuss the crisis situations happening in every sector. Ambassador Veltar's crystal body had lost its shine. Dark cracks ran through his form, showing the stress he was under. The outer rim is lost, he announced. 3 entire star systems are at war. The ancient conflict between the Mantari hives and the Silicon Confederacy has exploded into full battle. Billions are dead. Dr. Crevier buzzed angrily as she spoke. This should not have happened. These species have had small disagreements for thousands of years, but they never fought real wars. Something changed. We know what changed, said Admiral Thexera, her scales turning dark red with anger. Captain Rick Johnson is not there anymore. He was the one who always found ways to stop fights before they became wars. He could make enemies shake hands and become friends. Now he is trapped behind that barrier we built. Council leader Mordak's rocky voice rumbled through the chamber. The economic reports are worse. Whole trade networks are shutting down. Planets that have traded with each other for centuries are cutting off contact. The systems that human economists designed are failing everywhere. Zeph Carey looked at the charts floating in the air around them. Every graph showed the same thing. Unemployment among alien species was rising fast. Food shortages were spreading. Technology development had almost stopped. The galaxy was falling apart. The refugee situation is out of control, reported a small furry delegate from the outer colonies. Millions of beings are fleeing from war zones. The planets that used to take refugees are closing their borders. Without human aid organizations, no one knows how to handle this many displaced people. Dr. Crevier brought up medical reports. Disease outbreaks are happening on 12 worlds. The treatments that Dr. Amy Clark developed are running out. No other species knows how to make them. We are watching populations die from illnesses that should be easy to cure. But the most frightening reports came from their attempts to spy on humanity itself. Every alien species had tried to scan through the quantum barriers to see what humans were doing. All they got back was static and silence. We had detected massive energy readings from inside the Sol system, reported the head of galactic intelligence. The power signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Whatever the humans are building uses more energy than some of our star systems produce. Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. What if they are building weapons? The room fell silent. Everyone had been thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. There's something else, the intelligence officer continued. We found one human who was outside the barrier when it activated. Commander Rex Thompson. He has agreed to speak with us. They brought Thompson into the chamber in restraints, though he looked calm and unafraid. The human had been living in exile for 10 years, watching the galaxy fall apart from the outside. "You want to know what my people are doing behind that wall," Thompson said, looking around at the frightened aliens. "I will tell you. They are changing." "Changing how?" demanded Zethkari. "You trap them like animals in a cage," Thompson replied. "But humans do not break like other species. We adapt. We evolve. We become whatever we need to become to survive. You gave them 10 years of isolation, 10 years of anger, 10 years to develop without any limits or rules." Admiral Thexera's scales turned pale. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the humans you locked away no longer exist," Thompson explained. "What you created in that prison is something new, something harder, something that has learned the galaxy sees them as enemies to be destroyed rather than friends to be welcomed." He looked directly at each council member as he spoke his next words. "You wanted a galaxy without humans. Congratulations. When that barrier comes down, you will get exactly what you asked for. The humans who come out will not be the same ones who went in. They will not be looking for friendship or trade deals or peaceful cooperation." "What will they want?" whispered Dr. Crevier. Thompson smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Justice. And they have had 10 years to plan exactly how to get it." The council members looked at each other in growing horror. They had created their own worst nightmare, and now it was almost ready to be unleashed on the galaxy. 15 years had passed since the barriers trapped humanity in their home system. Inside the prison of light, everything had changed. President Jack Turner stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, looking out at what had once been Earth's moon. Now it was the capital of a transformed human civilization. The old nations of Earth no longer existed. When the barriers came down, humanity had realized they could not afford the luxury of fighting among themselves. The crisis had united them in ways that centuries of peace never could. They had become one people with one purpose. General Patricia Lee joined Turner at the window. Her uniform was unlike anything worn by human soldiers before the barriers. It was made from materials that could stop energy weapons and repair themselves if damaged. Her boots could walk in space without a suit. Her helmet could see through walls and translate any alien language instantly. "The final production reports are in," Lee said, handing Turner a data tablet. "We are ready." Turner looked at the numbers. 15 years of isolation had forced humanity to become completely self-sufficient, but they had not stopped there. They had become something more efficient and deadly than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Dr. Carlos Martinez wants to show you the new weapon systems," Lee continued. "He says you need to see what we have built." They walked through Luna Station's corridors. The walls were covered with materials that seemed to shift and flow like living things. These were not just metals and plastics. They were smart materials that could change their properties based on what was needed. A wall could become transparent to light, or hard as diamond, or soft as cloth, all with just a thought. Dr. Martinez waited for them in the weapons laboratory. The room was filled with devices that looked more like art than instruments of war. But Turner knew each one could destroy entire planets. President Turner Martinez said, his voice excited, "Look at what we have created." He showed them a small device that looked like a glass sphere filled with swirling light. "This is a gravity bomb. It creates a miniature black hole that can tear apart anything within 1,000 kilometers. We can make these by the millions." Turner picked up the sphere. It felt warm in his hands. "How many do we have?" "Enough to crack every major world in the galaxy," Martinez replied. "But that is not the best part." Showing the planet killers, Patricia, General Lee led them to a viewing window that looked out into space. In the distance, Turner could see massive structures being built around the sun. They looked like metal rings, but each one was larger than Earth itself. "Solar collectors," Lee explained. "They gather energy from our star and focus it into beams that can reach any point in the galaxy. We can destroy entire star systems without sending a single ship." Turner nodded. The humans trapped behind the barriers had not just built weapons. They had built the means to wage war on a scale that the galaxy had never imagined. But the most important changes were in humanity's children. Turner visited the education centers where young humans learned about their new world. Students like Kevin Brown and Jessica Lee were not being taught to be diplomats or traders. They were being raised as soldiers and strategists. "What is the first rule of galactic relations?" their teacher asked. "Trust no alien species," the children replied in unison. "They will always choose their own interests over humanity's survival." "What is the second rule?" "Strength is the only language the galaxy understands. Weakness invites destruction." Turner watched as the children practiced combat scenarios. They were learning to fight not just with weapons, but with their minds. They studied alien psychology to find weaknesses. They memorized the history of every species so they could exploit old grudges and fears. Captain Dan Foster commanded the new Human Defense Force. His ships were unlike anything that had existed before the barriers. They did not need supply lines or support from friendly planets. Each vessel was a complete war machine that could operate alone for decades. "Every ship can repair itself," Foster explained as they toured the fleet. "Every weapon system has multiple backups. Every crew member is trained in multiple specialties. We do not depend on anyone else for anything." The ships themselves were works of art and terror. They moved through space like living things, their hulls shifting and changing as needed. They could become invisible to sensors or bright as stars to blind enemies. They could split into smaller ships or combine into larger ones. But perhaps the most frightening change was in humanity's thinking. Dr. Helen Wright led the philosophy department that was shaping the new human mindset. She taught that humanity's greatest mistake had been trying to fit into galactic civilization. "We spent 200 years trying to be good neighbors," Wright told her students. "We helped them with their problems. We shared our knowledge. We followed their rules. And what did it get us? They voted to destroy us." "What should we have done?" asked a student. "We should have remembered that in nature, there are only predators and prey," Wright replied. "The galaxy has shown us which one we are meant to be." Turner left the education center with a heavy heart. Humanity had survived their imprisonment, but they had lost something important in the process. They had lost their faith in friendship and cooperation. They had learned to see the galaxy as an enemy, to be conquered rather than a community to join. When the barriers fell, humanity would emerge stronger than ever. But they would no longer be the same species that had been locked away. They would be something new, something harder, something that would never again make the mistake of trusting alien promises. 20 years had passed since the quantum barriers went up. The galaxy was dying, and everyone knew it. Ambassador Zeph Carey stood before an emergency council session, but only 7 of the original 12 species were still represented. The others had either collapsed into civil war or been destroyed completely. The council chamber looked nothing like it had 20 years ago. The walls showed blast damage from recent attacks. Half the seats were empty. The remaining ambassadors looked tired and desperate. Their once proud civilizations were crumbling, and they all knew why. "The situation reports," Zeph Carey announced, his voice hollow. He no longer had the strength to sound confident. Ambassador Veltar's crystal body was so cracked it looked ready to shatter. "The war between the Mantari hives and Silicon Confederacy has spread to 6 star systems. 3 billion beings are dead. For entire worlds have been turned to glass. The fighting shows no signs of stopping." Dr. Crevier's insect form moved slowly as she brought up the economic data. "Galactic trade has dropped by 70%. Unemployment is at levels we have never seen. Whole sectors of space have been abandoned. Planets that were rich 20 years ago are now sending out distress calls for basic food supplies. The refugee crisis has overwhelmed our capacity to help," reported Admiral Thexera. Her scales had turned a permanent gray color from stress. 40 billion beings have been displaced from their homes. Refugee camps are turning into battlegrounds as different species fight over resources. But the most terrifying part of the reports came from their observations of the Sol system. The energy readings coming from behind the quantum barriers had grown beyond anything in their databases. Whatever humanity was building inside their prison was operating on scales that made galactic engineering projects look like children's toys. "We have detected structures around their sun that are larger than our biggest space stations," the intelligence officer reported. The power they are generating could supply energy to half the galaxy. But they are not sharing it with anyone. They are keeping it all for themselves. Council leader Mordak's rocky voice was barely a whisper. What are they building with all that power? We do not know, the officer admitted. Our sensors cannot penetrate the barriers. But the energy signatures suggest weapons. Very large weapons. Zeph Carey looked around at his fellow council members. They all knew what had to be discussed, but no one wanted to say it first. We have to consider removing the barriers, he finally said. The chamber erupted in frightened voices. Every alien began talking at once, their translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping conversations. Are you insane? Shouted Veltar. We do not know what they become in there. We cannot keep the barriers up, Zeph Carey replied. The galaxy is falling apart without them. Look at the data. Every system that humans use to manage is failing. Every conflict they use to solve is getting worse. Every service they provided is gone. Dr. Crevier brought up comparison charts. Before the barriers, we had peace for 300 years. Trade flowed smoothly between all species. Technology advanced at steady rates. Population growth was stable across all worlds. She changed the display to show current conditions. Now look at us. Wars everywhere. Trade collapsed. Technology development has almost stopped. Some species are facing extinction. But what if releasing them makes things worse? Asked a small delegate from the outer colonies. What if they come out looking for revenge? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to admit it. We brought Commander Thompson back, Zeph Carey announced. He has been watching the barriers from the outside for 20 years. He might have answers. They brought the human into the chamber. Rex Thompson looked older now, his hair white and his face lined with worry. But his eyes were still sharp and intelligent. You want to know if you should drop the barriers, Thompson said without waiting for questions. You want to know if my people will forgive you for trying to destroy them. Will they? Asked Veltar. Thompson was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was sad. The humans who went into that prison 20 years ago might have forgiven you. They believed in cooperation and friendship. They thought differences could be solved with talking and compromise. He looked directly at each council member. But those humans are gone. What you created behind those barriers is something new, something that learned the galaxy's most important lesson. What lesson? Whispered Dr. Crevier. That in this universe, there are only two kinds of species, Thompson replied. Those who rule and those who serve. You taught them that try to be friends just makes you a target. You showed them that kindness is seen as weakness. You proved that the only way to be safe is to be stronger than everyone else. Admiral Fexera's scales turned pale, so they will want revenge. No, Thompson said, shaking his head. Revenge is emotional. What they want now is much worse. They want control. They want to make sure that no species ever again has the power to threaten humanity's existence. Zeph Carey felt cold despite the warm chamber. What are you saying? I am saying you have a choice, Thompson explained. You can keep the barriers up and watch galactic civilization destroy itself. Or you can take them down and let humanity fix the problems you created. But if you choose the second option, you need to understand something important, which is the humanity that comes out will not be asking for your permission to fix things. They will not be negotiating with you about how to run the galaxy. They will simply take control and do what needs to be done. Because 20 years ago, you voted that humanity had no place in galactic government. They learned that lesson very well. The council chamber fell silent as the terrible truth sank in. They had two choices, and both led to the end of the galaxy they had known. They could watch it die slowly, or they could hand it over to the species they had tried to destroy. Either way, the age of alien control was over. The decision took 3 days of desperate debate, but in the end there was no real choice. The galaxy was dying, and the council knew it. Ambassador Zeph Carey stood at the control panel that would shut down the quantum barriers. His 4 hands shook as he prepared to release whatever humanity had become. Are we sure about this? Asked Ambassador Veltar one last time. His crystal body was so damaged from stress that pieces kept falling off and shattering on the floor. "We are sure that keeping them locked up will kill us all," Zefkari replied. "Beyond that, we know nothing." Dr. Crevier watched her instruments carefully. "I am detecting massive energy buildups inside the Sol system. They know we are about to drop the barriers. They are ready for this moment." Council leader Mordak's rocky voice was barely a whisper. 21 years we kept them caged. 21 years of anger and isolation. What have we created? "We are about to find out," Zefkari said. He pressed the shutdown sequence. The quantum barriers that had contained humanity for over 2 decades flickered and died. For the first time in 21 years, the Sol system was open to the galaxy. What came out was beyond their worst nightmares. The first ships appeared within minutes of the barriers falling. Captain Ray Clark led the advanced fleet in vessels that moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. The ships seemed to bend space around themselves, appearing and disappearing at will. They traveled faster than the laws of physics should have allowed. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Crevier as she watched her sensors. Those speeds should tear their ships apart. But the ships were not just fast. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Their hulls flowed like liquid metal, changing shape as they moved. Some ships split into smaller ones. Others combined into massive battle cruisers. They moved through space like schools of fish, perfectly coordinated. Admiral Kelly Green commanded the main fleet that followed. Her forces spread throughout the galaxy with mechanical precision. They did not attack anyone, but they moved to every major strategic point in galactic space. Within hours, human ships were positioned at every important star system, trade route, and resource center. The aliens tried to communicate, but the human response was not what they expected. This is President Jack Turner of the Human Defense Authority, came the message. 21 years ago, the Galactic Council voted to eliminate humanity from galactic affairs. We accept those terms. You'll find that the humanity you remember no longer exists. The message was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Short, simple, and terrifying in its calmness. Ambassador Zefkari tried to send a reply. "President Turner, we wish to discuss terms for renewed cooperation between our species." The response came back immediately. "There will be no negotiations. There will be no terms. You made your choice 21 years ago. Now you will live with the consequences." Dr. Kevin Ross led the first wave of human scientists back into galactic space. But they were not looking for cooperation or friendship. They moved through alien research facilities like conquerors, taking whatever data and technology they wanted. When alien scientists protested, the humans simply ignored them. "You cannot just take our research," Dr. Crevier complained when human teams entered her laboratory. "We are not taking it," Dr. Ross replied calmly. "We are collecting it. This information now belongs to the Human Defense Authority. You may continue your work under our supervision." The transformation was happening everywhere. Captain Andy Miller's forces did not ask for permission to establish bases on alien worlds. They simply chose strategic locations and began building. When local governments protested, the humans presented them with new facts. "Your government has been dissolved," Miller would tell alien leaders. "This world is now under Human Defense Authority protection. You will be given new assignments based on your species' capabilities." Dr. Linda Foster's research team swept through alien databases, copying everything. Medical data, technological specifications, historical records, military secrets. Nothing was hidden from them. Their advanced systems could break through any alien security in minutes. The most disturbing thing was how efficient it all was. There was no fighting, no violence, no destruction. The humans simply moved through the galaxy like they owned it, and no one could stop them. Within 6 months, every major alien world had human administrators. Captain Steve Davis's patrol fleets controlled all space routes. Dr. Amy Johnson's new economic systems replaced the old trade networks. Everything ran smoothly, but under completely human control. The old Galactic Council was allowed to keep meeting, but now they met in a building owned and operated by humans. Human guards stood at every door. Human observers watched every discussion. The aliens could talk all they wanted, but they could not make any real decisions. President Turner visited the council exactly once. He stood before the frightened alien representatives and delivered a simple message. You wanted a galaxy without humans, he said. You have it. The humans you knew are gone. What you see now is what you created when you chose to be our enemies instead of our friends. Ambassador Zefkari tried to speak. We made a mistake. We were wrong to contain your people. Can we not find a way to work together again? Turner looked at him with eyes that showed no emotion. 21 years ago, you had the chance to work with us. You chose elimination instead. That choice cannot be undone. This galaxy will never again face the threat of uncontrolled alien decisions. He turned and walked away, leaving the alien council to face their new reality. They had gotten exactly what they voted for. A galaxy without the humans they remembered. In their place was something far more efficient, far more powerful, and completely without mercy for those who had proven they could not be trusted. 1 year had passed since the barriers fell. Ambassador Zefkari walked through the halls of what used to be the Galactic Council building. The walls still looked the same, but everything else had changed. Human guards stood at every corner. Human administrators worked at every desk. The building still functioned, but it now served a very different purpose. Zefkari entered the main chamber, where the council still met. The circular table was the same, but new seats had been added. Human observers sat behind each alien representative, watching everything they said and did. Every conversation was recorded. Every decision had to be approved by human administrators. President Jack Turner stood at the center of the room. He was giving his monthly report on the state of the galaxy. The alien representatives listened in silence, knowing they had no power to change anything he said. Galactic peace has been maintained for 12 consecutive months, Turner announced. All conflicts between species have ended. Trade routes are operating at maximum efficiency. Resource distribution is stable across all inhabited worlds. The numbers he presented were impressive. The wars that had torn the galaxy apart for 20 years were over. The Mantari hives and Silicon Confederacy had stopped fighting within days of human intervention. Captain Steve Davis's patrol fleets made sure no new conflicts could start. But Ambassador Zefkari knew the price of this peace. Economic productivity is up 40% from pre-barrier levels. Turner continued. Unemployment has been eliminated through our work assignment programs. Food production meets the needs of all galactic populations. Dr. Amy Johnson had redesigned the entire galactic economy. Every species was given jobs based on what they did best. The Christine people mined minerals in deep space. The Zephyrians grew food on agricultural worlds. The Mantari built machines in massive factories. Everyone had work, but no one had choices. Education programs continue to show excellent results, Turner said. The next generation of galactic citizens is learning the skills needed for productive lives in the new order. This was the part that frightened Zefkari most. Dr. Carol White schools were teaching alien children to think like humans. They learned human values, human history, human ways of solving problems. Within 1 generation, the distinct cultures that had made up galactic civilization would be memories. Young Christine children no longer learned the ancient songs of their people. Instead, they studied human engineering techniques. Zephyrian youth forgot the traditional farming methods passed down for thousands of years. They learned to use human agricultural systems. Mantari children stopped practicing the ritual dances of their hives. They trained to operate human manufacturing equipment. Medical care has been standardized across all species. Turner continued. Disease outbreaks have been eliminated. Life expectancy has increased on every inhabited world. Dr. Linda Foster's medical teams had indeed solved health problems that had plagued alien species for millennia, but they had also taken control of all medical research. No alien scientist could study disease or develop treatments without human approval. All medical knowledge now belonged to the Human Defense Authority. General Patricia Lee gave the security report. Galactic crime rates have dropped to near zero. Piracy has been eliminated from all trade routes. Terrorist activities have ceased completely. She did not mention that this was because human surveillance systems watched every citizen on every world. Privacy no longer existed. Every communication was monitored. Every movement was tracked. Every thought that might threaten human control was detected and corrected. The integration programs show promising results, reported Dr. Helen Wright. Local populations are adapting well to their new roles in galactic society. Integration. That was the human word for what had happened to alien cultures. The unique traditions, beliefs, and customs that had developed over millions of years were being slowly erased, replaced with human efficiency and human order. Ambassador Zeph Carey remembered when his people had been proud warriors who built crystal cities that sang in the solar wind. Now they worked in human minds, following human schedules, living in human-designed housing. They were fed, clothed, and cared for, but they were no longer truly Christine. The same thing was happening to every species. The galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had ever been. No one was hungry. No one was homeless. No one was unemployed. Disease and crime were almost extinct, but no one was free. Are there any questions from the advisory council? Turner asked, looking at the alien representatives. Zeph Carey wanted to ask when alien species would regain some control over their own worlds. He wanted to ask if human rule would ever become less absolute. He wanted to ask if the cultures of his people would be allowed to survive. But he knew better than to ask questions that would only receive polite non-answers. No questions, President Turner, Zeph Carey said quietly. Excellent, Turner replied. This concludes today's briefing. As the meeting ended, Zeph Carey walked slowly back to his quarters. He passed groups of alien children heading to their human schools. He saw alien workers boarding transports to their assigned jobs. He watched alien families eating in restaurants that served human-approved meals. Everyone looked healthy and content. The galaxy had never been more stable or well-organized. There was no suffering, no want, no conflict. There was also no hope for change. The humans had kept their promise. They had given the galaxy exactly what the Council had voted for 22 years ago. A universe without the humans they remembered. In their place was something far more efficient. Something that solved every problem and met every need. Something that would never again allow the chaos and waste that had characterized the old galactic order. Zeph Carey often wondered if his people had been happier when they were struggling and fighting and making their own mistakes. But such thoughts were dangerous now. The human monitoring systems might detect them, so he pushed the thoughts away and prepared for another day in the perfect galaxy that humanity had built for them all.